All right, ladies and gentlemen, I've got another Evans Gambit game, and this time I want to talk about converting a winning position. I think there's no worse feeling than having a winning position on the board, like you will in the Evans Gambit. It's inevitable. When you reach this position, it happens in probably, I would say, at least 50% of the games I play. I'm usually playing intermediate level players on lead chess. This is anywhere from like 1500 to 2000 rated. And these players are constantly falling into this trap after takes, playing the bishop back to c5, which is not a particularly good defense. Much more difficult would be playing the bishop back here, here, the where, or even all the way back here. In any case, most of these players constantly bring the bishop back to c4, which gets hit with tempo with d4. The whole point of the Evans Gambit, opening up the lines, taking control of the center. You're giving up the pawn, but it's just so difficult for anybody to survive this. So we'll see pawn takes, castles, and you can look, I have the opening book up here. D takes c3 is a huge mistake. You can see white wins constantly, and it's completely it's losing for black, and people are constantly playing this move, constantly playing this move. If we go back one move, castles here is a 60% win rate for white, so you're not going to get much better than that. So I want to talk about is converting this winning position after d takes c3, and I can remove the opening book now. Essentially here, what is the goal of the Evans Gambit? The goal of the Evans Gambit is to open lines. It's to really just tear apart black's king, because after d takes c3, the king's never castling, right? Every single time we're taking on f7, and black really, there's obviously only two responses here, king f8 or king takes f7. I'm going to go over king f8 here first, and then we can talk about king takes f7. But either way, white is going to get a dominant position. The computer says, we'll say +1, +2 in this position, but it's very obvious that this is completely winning against a human being, especially like an intermediate level player. If you're playing the best in the world, they obviously would never reach this position in the first place because they would see the danger. So after king f8, there's a few moves we need to discuss. The correct continuation for white is to simply take this knight. And after rook takes, there's a couple different things we can do. If king takes, it's much more straightforward. King takes g8 simply allows queen d5 check, which was the whole point of playing it. If king takes on f7, we're still going to get this fork either way. So they've really just hurt their own chances. They need to take with the rook here. White is completely winning. And as you can see, after queen takes, king f8, queen takes, and then it's this is simply winning. There's nothing that needs to be said from this position. Simply develop your pieces, and you're going to have a fine game. There's no way that that black is getting out of this. So we see that rook takes here is completely forced, and the correct continuation is actually knight g5. So we immediately want to hop in with our knight, and you're going to notice some tactics here that like to pop up. We'll see the queen coming out to this square, allowing for forks on the newly undefended h7 pawn, and white is going to constantly have to deal with these weaknesses on the light squares that the knight has control over, with the queen coming in, with the bishop possibly coming to this diagonal. The knight can quickly get involved, and it's just a terrible position for black. I'm going to go over 3 moves from this position. We're going to look at h6, We're also going to look at queen f6, and then we're also going to look at rook h8, the best move. Very difficult to find rook h8, just simply moving the rook back, defending the h7 pawn. So firstly, after pawn to h6, simply queen f3 check, and it's completely over. If the queen blocks, we win the queen. If the king moves over to e8, let's say, we simply mate. Very, very simple stuff. We can also look at queen f6 immediately, which just gets forked. It's over, just in your face. 1-2 punch. Lastly, we can take a look at rook h8. And here, like I said, open lines, push the pawn forward. Let's open up lines. e5, knight takes e5, and very, very nice move here we'll see is, you pause if you want to try and find it, but knight e6. And you could be like, oh no, what if pawn take, oh, you hang your queen. So this knight g5 maneuver is really nice. You can see all of these light squares are really weak. This queen is simply going down. There's just it's really hard for black to defend. They're immediately losing, and this is a position that we need to win. At the end of the day, it's just about converting this win, because in a lot of your games, it's going to be this kind of position after move 8 here. We're going to see this position a lot. So don't be that 40% of people that couldn't convert this. So we've taken a look at king f8, and we're going to do a deep dive here. This is going to be a little bit longer video, but I really want to hammer this home. See if we can't get this win percentage up on Lichess. Come on. It's ridiculous, but we can look at king takes f7 now. And now I'll follow what I did in the game here. And it's pretty straightforward, pretty obvious what needs to happen from white in these situations. And then we can look at some other lines that I have that's it kind of stems. So this is a position that will be reached in most games. We'll see queen d5 check, picking up the bishop, and most often we'll see d6, which is what I will cover, hitting the queen. In this game, I had knight g to e7. I played knight takes c3. Slightly more accurate here is queen h5. And I'll discuss that. We'll kind of see the similar theme after black plays d6. But knight takes c3, we're getting another piece in the game. It's obviously still very much winning for white. I like it as a human being. I like it. Maybe the computer thinks that there's a stronger move, but I really like getting this piece in. It's kind of a Morphy style move, and it gets me one step closer to bringing my rooks together. This bishop can come out. I don't have to worry about this pawn just lingering here, maybe getting pushed. I like the move. You know, don't play it if you don't want to. I think it's totally fine. So I played knight takes c3. He played rook f8. Excuse me. I played queen check, rook f8. I played queen to h5 check. And we'll see what I said earlier about d6. Now it's happening earlier. He never prompted my queen to move, so I didn't move it. And then I see this check, and I'm like, okay, now I can prompt a bit of a weakness here. He blocks with the pawn, and then I can just sink my queen in here, taking on h7. Really nice move. I have a lot of threats coming in, and you'll notice that with g6 on the board, there's some weaknesses here on the dark squares, and that's going to become apparent with this bishop just waiting to get out. So after he plays b6, he's looking to get his pieces out because he can't move anything. That's the beauty of this position, is that you can take your time, bring your knights in, bring the bishop in, bring the rooks to the center. You can't take all day, but you can bring those pieces in together, and we'll see the power of it, because he needs to make moves to even move this bishop. This rook isn't going anywhere. This knight is pinned down to the protection of this pawn. Where's this rook going? You know, where's the rook going? It's not going anywhere. So we'll see me bring the bishop in. He has to save the rook. And in this position, Black actually resigned, and I will continue further. Alexis here just took the L, which is unfortunate, but you know, it has to happen sometimes. You got to take some L's. And in this position, they resigned because of these threats, either knight to d5 or the move I would have played in the game, which was knight f to g5 there. And we can go into a little bit of a line here. So after knight d5, we might see knight takes d5, pawn takes d5. You can see the open lines here. It's about to get really nasty. d6, trying to get the bishop into the game, but it's simply futile. There's nothing you can do here. I'm just simply going to take the rook, and it's over. So that's just kind of a sample line. I don't think there's much to be said there. This is a very winning position, and obviously we have forced mate in 8. I didn't calculate that far, but it's pretty obvious that this is winning. We have a lot of threats. This is one right here. So next I want to go into d6. So previously we just looked at queen d5 check, picking up the bishop. And in the game, my opponent played this move, defending the knight, but not putting any pressure on my queen. Very often we will see d6 in this position. We will not be seeing knight to knight out here. And we can check the opening book really quick. Yeah, so d6 is much more common. Queen e7, fairly common as well. But after queen e7, there's a couple of different moves here. I can turn on the engine really quick, but simply picking up this pawn and then attacking this diagonal is going to be winning. I don't believe it's as strong. I think the best continuation here for Black is probably d6. But yeah, so okay, so let's take a look at d6. So, excuse me. Yeah. Oops. That's not what I want. Knight gd7, knight takes c3. Oops, am I missing something here? d6 right away. Rook to f8, knight takes c3. Oh, excuse me. I wanted to look at d6 right away, which is it's pretty interesting. There's a couple of different ways to play this. You can't really throw in queen h5 check at this point, so it's best to just take the pawn. You'll see a lot of players here. We're just going to look to develop the knight or the queen. If they develop the knight, very simply playing the bishop out, we'll see moves like bringing their bishop out, and then centralizing the rooks is a great plan. Bringing these knights into the game. And ultimately, you got to be careful about g4. That's probably Black's biggest source of counterplay in these positions. We'll also see a lot of potential rook sacrifices against this knight, looking to open it up. This is Black's sources of counterplay in these positions. But at the end of the day, this is still very winning. I just wanted to briefly go over that before we go into d6. Sorry, that's why I got confused. Okay, so after knight takes c3, the Morphy style move, we have the move rook f8 played in the game. I want to look at d6 in this position. Now, d6 offers some interesting continuations. As you can see, d6 can be played earlier, but this is also extremely winning for white. And there's a couple of key sequences that you should follow up with. The immediate move here is queen h5. Again, just like we had in the game, we want to provoke those weaknesses. We want to force g6. We want to bury the queen in. In this position, we can't take on h7 because the rook is guarding it. but we can still keep this queen in here, and it's going to become incredibly annoying with our pieces coming in. So after g6, queen h6, remember burying the queen in the position. Bishop out to e6, he's trying to develop his pieces, and then knight d5. And this knight is just coming in, and after knight takes d5 or bishop takes d5, we're going to see the pawn simply shifting over to the d file, allowing for the rooks to converge, and just look at the lines here. The lines are beautiful. It's incredibly intuitive. It's incredibly easy to play. Pawn takes d5, bishop takes d5, and it's over. He simply opened up too many lines. We're putting pressure on the pin piece. There's nothing else for black to do in this position. He's going to, at the very least, he's going to have to give up the queen with his king stuck in the center of the board. After this, after some kind of some continuation here, black makes a nothing move. Something like this could definitely happen, and it just looks terrible. I could also bring the rook in here. Don't even need to play the queen in. It's going to be great. It's going to be great for white. The other continuation I want to look at is after queen h5, we can also have players block with the knight g6. You'll see it's the second most popular move to g6. After knight g6, we simply bring in the knight to d5. Again, a recurring theme. In this case, it's even more intuitive. You don't really have to think about it. But anytime you can open up the file in front of the king, it's going to be a good time. And anytime you can stick a knight like this, look at this knight. It's beautiful. Like, it's covering all these squares. It's going to be crucial in our attack. Bishop e6 attacking the knight. And the other knight comes in. Again, themes. If you don't remember anything, you don't need to memorize the specific lines. Just remember the themes. And that can help you find the right moves in some of these positions. At the end of the day, you're not going to be able to memorize the lines. That's not what chess is about. It's about finding like beauty in some of these positions. It's about looking for patterns. It's more of an art. It's not a game of memorization. If you want to make it a game of memorization, go ahead and play the Berlin. Good luck. But in reality, you can look at these patterns, in these openings you play, and it becomes really apparent what kind of moves need to be made and how to achieve a winning position, how to convert a winning position. Anyway, so again, opening up the E file, very simple. He could try and block with the knight, but then this is the best knight I've ever seen. He should probably trade this knight for this queen, honestly. This knight is way stronger. Simply looking to attack down that open file and defending the g7 pawn. My other rook comes in. He tries to break out of here maybe with c6, but then f4, f5's coming. If you take cd, f5, and this game is over. I mean, you can just look at this position. There's no reason to continue calculating here because at the end of the day, it's going to be a complete disaster for black here. So I hope you guys find that interesting. Bit of a Evans Gambit deep dive. I'm going to keep doing these. I really like deep diving into the Evans Gambit because you get really unique positions. I'm going to continue to link the Lee Chess study with all of my Evans games. There's a lot of wins, a couple losses to learn from, and I think it's pretty helpful. If anybody, feel free to like it if you want to. If you like these deep dives, let me know. I think at the end of the day, knowing the right moves to play in these specific Evans positions, it's amazing. There's no other opening really like it. It's kind of similar to the Mora, but the lines, just the opening of the lines against Black's King is just so much fun to play. So I'm going to keep making these deep dives, and I'm going to keep getting better at this opening. I'm not perfect. and we'll see where it goes. So if anybody got anything out of this, that's awesome. If not, I'll go fuck myself. So thanks.